Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. I know we're starting the broadcast here at 11. We're going to get started here with the intro as people still trickle in. We've got a big cast here as far as people who have signed up for registration here. So we want to make sure everybody has some time to get in here. Appreciate everybody who's going to spend the next hour with me on the call. If we do go over by a couple of minutes, I do apologize. There's lots of content here, but goal is to get you out right on time and have some time for questions. So it looks like we're already up to about 50 people in here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. A few people will trickle in as we go, but this is going to be fun. So welcome to using GIS to manage lead service line inventory. This is one of my favorite topics, one of my favorite solutions to talk about. So this is going to be a great day here. We got some demos, some slides, and of course, I'm going to have a great time regardless of what you think. So so my name is Alex Lang. I'm a solutions engineer at Pro West and Associates, and let's get started. So who is Pro West, right? So Pro West as is exclusively GIS consulting company, been in business for 36 years. We're Minnesota based, have an office in Walker, Minnesota, for those of you familiar with that area. We're tightly focused on local government, but we have a focus on water utilities as well. So for those of you from those, shout out to you. We've been an Esri Gold partner for 33 years, receiving special Esri specialties and awards. We have three main components of our business: data solutions, of course, and programming. Our mission to make what you do better with location technology. That's at the core of everything we do. What you need is what we got. So, and I always like to throw this out. My favorite Pro West fun fact: Pro West was the 12th ever Esri official business partner. Number 12. That is awesome. I love being able to showcase that. All right, so the agenda, what are we going to be talking about today? So obviously we're going to be going over the lead service line inventory solution, but we're going to kick things off with the lead and copper rule because there's obviously some very important things as to why we're discussing this solution here today. Then we're going to do an overview of what the solution is as a whole, kind of breaking it down into three pieces: an inventory, public engagement, and asset management. Once we do that quick overview, we're going to deep dive into each one of those because that's how I've broken up the demos here today. Is there will be solutions underneath each one of those topics. We'll dive deep into those with a slide, and then hopefully we spend the most of our time today here on those demos showcasing the solutions. I'd like to point out that we do have some sample data in the out of the box solutions from the city of St. Cloud. So anybody from St. Cloud, shout out to you, and thank you to them for having that data, so that sample data in there. And then we're going to end with a recap and let you know who you can contact if you have any additional questions. And as referring to questions, if you have any, go ahead and pop them in the chat or the question function into GoToWebinar. I will be going over questions if there's time at the very end of the webinar, so stick around that we will hopefully be able to get to those. All right, so the lead and copper rule, because one of the unique things about the lead service line inventory solution is that there is an actual law, the lead and copper rule, that is actually tailored for this solution. Well, law came first if you want to play chicken and egg here, but it's a it's a very unique law in that it's been around for quite a while, but it recently got an update, which is why we're talking here today. So what is this rule? Well, it's meant to locate sources of lead in drinking water. Of course, that's a very big issue for having that very public health issue that we want to be able to take care of. But as part of the rule, we also saw some updates as it refers to better, more accurate testing results, right? So we want to be accurate in what we're collecting, but we also need a method for collecting it. And GIS and ArcGIS Online are the perfect medium. This solution is awesome. I can't wait to get into it. And that's where we are as far as this rule. But there is another component that doesn't often get talked about, is that there's also been updates to the replacement efforts. So there used to be, as part of this lead and copper rule, there used to be what was called the 4-year loophole, right? Where when a lead line was located, you actually had 48 months in order to actually replace it. That loophole is now closed. You now need to have immediate action plans for the mitigation of lead service line inventory, of the lead lines themselves. And there is a solution. There's a couple different solutions inside this solution set that is designed for those actual replacement methods. So we're not just dealing with an inventory here, we're also dealing with data management and asset management as well. And then, of course, the big thing, the big deadline, right? So when do you have to have this initial inventory? Well, that date is, as of now, it is, you need to be reporting compliance by October 16th, 2024. I will say it again, October 16th, 2024. For as in not this year, next year, there's still time. Anybody who didn't know that can take a little bit of a breath, right? and we can um, move forward. And for that matter, the reporting compliance is going to come down to sending that to your state level. So if you're in Minnesota, you send that to the state of Minnesota, California, and so on and so forth. So, what is the lead service line inventory solution? Well, when we say solution with a capital S, meaning that is an official ArcGIS online solution. So when you go into ArcGIS Online, you go to the Solutions app and you can download and deploy the solution right into your organization with the click of a button, as well as all the resources therein. So when we look at this solution, we break it down into three distinct components. The first is the inventory. We have a targeted feature class that's designed to capture locations and data relating to service lines, but it's a little bit unique in a couple of respects. The first is that it is not the service lines themselves. This is actually a point feature class. Service lines, of course, can be a line running from the road to the property, but this is just one point that's on that line that's meant to capture the information about the lead service, whether or not there's lead in itself. And why is it like that? Well, we think of it as contrasting points. This feature class is supposed to be there for capturing information about the material and whether or not the line is lead. This is different from a service line in of itself, where we may be tracking other things that are unrelated to that, as well as if there was already data in your inventory. If you already have lead service lines collected, we don't want to interfere with that by having to change schema and all this. So when it comes to this particular solution, we're trying to take a look at this specific use case. So we have a specific feature class in order to do so. It's also unique that it's there to collect both sides of the inventory. You will see how we do that here when we get into the Pro project, which is my favorite piece, or my second favorite piece, if you will. I have a lot of favorites on this. And we have information inside this point that's designed to capture the information on the customer side. And we have information for the utility side, as well as other information about the property and replacement efforts as well. So lots of things packed into one point, but it doesn't interfere with any of your other assets. So what's next? So then there's public engagement piece. And when we think of public engagement of GIS, I know what you're thinking. It's a hub site, right? There is a hub site that we're going to be going over, and that's designed to do a couple of different things. It's supposed to inform, highlight about the specific efforts. It also showcases the inventory and shows staff accomplishments. This is a very big project for some organizations, and we want to highlight, or it should be highlighted, what staff are doing in order to actually perform this work, as well as, if necessary, we could also be prompting for feedback from the public. And I'll show what that is when we actually get to that point. But it's very, very key to know that that's where you have a single destination to go to for the public to see information about the lead service lines or potential lead service lines. And then, of course, we have asset management. When we're done, we have to maintain these point datas if we're going to utilize them for replacement. And if we have other service lines, we may want to transfer some asset data over to those service lines themselves. It's a really great way of not only creating a workflow for replacement, creating a mitigation operation, and then, of course, utilizing your lead service lines in general. Couple more points I'll add before we get any further is that this solution is flexible to meet wherever you are at your various stage. If you already have some data, it can be it can be added to this. If you haven't even started, of course, the lead service line inventory is a great way to kickstart your efforts. But wherever you are in your stage of development when it comes to capturing this data, this solution is there to be able to help your organization get this taken care of. So recapping, we have your inventory for getting that data, right? We have the public where we will inform, prompt, and or highlight our data. And then we have our asset management, which is where the work begins, right? We capture the inventory, but we have to maintain it. We have to use it as an asset management tool because it's there, and we have lots of solutions that are able to help you do that. So lots of cool things available in this solution set, and that's what we're going to get into next. All right. So the first piece is the inventory. So as part of the inventory, we are going to start with the downloadable Pro project deployed with the solution. I love this Pro project for a couple different reasons. Of course, we get edit access and we can take a look at the schema of the entire data set. That's always a lot more comprehensive, more in depth. You can obviously see that stuff inside ArcGIS Online, but I find the Pro project to be very helpful as well. It also showcases the style, the symbols, and the labeling that's very key for this solution. I don't know of another solution where the symbology and labeling are playing such a key role in highlighting the data and utilizing the data. So that's a very, very good option to be able to take a look at that. It's also a great way of building that initial inventory, of course. Loading that initial data in via the Pro project can be very, very helpful as opposed to ArcGIS Online going that method. Then we move on to the inventory, which is, of course, the field map. We need field access because that's maybe where we're going to be capturing all of this data, right? And the really, really cool part is, and I know I say a lot of things are cool about this because this is just a great solution in general, is these smart forms inside of the field map. So they are completely configured when you deploy the solution. So it is ready to go when you open up that field map. We will take a look at that here shortly to see what that configuration is. And it's just very, very great that that is already available for when we deploy that. And then we have our web solutions. We have a solution to view the data as a whole as it's coming in. We have, of course, an editor in order to edit that initial inventory. And then, of course, a dashboard. I don't need to tell anybody here that a dashboard is awesome to have because the supervisors on this effort can get a 30,000 foot view of how everything is going. And it's also a great way of tracking everything that's coming in from the field because you're able to kind of have this funnel of this one solution you can take a look at. Especially if there's no need to edit the data, we can take a look at the dashboard and get that really good, those key performance indicators, if you will. All right, so then we've reached our first demo. Yay! I know you were waiting for it. So give me 1 second here. I'm gonna go ahead and switch my screen share. All right. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is that Pro project. And I think you can see right away what I'm talking about when it comes to the symbology of this data set. So of course we have two different things we want to track. We have our customer and utility side. And we have to have a symbol that's actually going to show both of those pieces so we don't have to click in a pop-up to see that information every single time we go in there. So what this symbol is, it's called multivariable symbols. Big name just means we're showing two different fields with one symbol. That is, on the left hand side you're seeing the utility side, on the right hand side you're seeing the customer, and all the combinations therein, all the way down to unknown, and of course other. As data comes in, we want to be able to, if something isn't filled in correctly, we want to still be able to see those points. So we've got some QA QC going on when it comes to this symbology sets, and it's one of my favorite because I just think it looks cool. Um, and the other component that can be very helpful inside this pro project is the labels. Now you may be looking on this symbol, you may have already spotted these labels, but it's those actual dots. Those little dots are the labels. And what is that telling us? Well, that's actually utilizing an arcade function, a really simple one, that is simply saying if a field is yes, we're going to put a dot there. And what in that field, or sorry, is not yes, is the verification. So when it comes to filling in this data, sometimes we have a source. We say that a service line may be lead, but maybe we're a little bit suspicious or we're not sure that that's right because we know there was a project there. It doesn't seem like that would be a place that would have it. So what there is there's another field called verification. And if we trip that, we say verified no, that means that we've got a value, but we're not 100% certain that is the value. So we need to go out and actually verify that that is the case. So these dots are highlighting where we have unverified locations. Now, for this data set here, this sample data that we've gotten from the city of St. Cloud, they actually have collected via a meter replacement effort. They have all of their customer sides collected. And those will be loaded into their data as they go through this process. Now, if, for example, this little point right here, say they had reason to believe that it says non-lead, but we actually think it might be lead, they could flip that flag to no, and then there'd be a dot there signifying that we are unverified. We're not certain that that actually is the case. So now if you throw in the location side of things, where these service lines are, from these points, I'm seeing 5 different sets of data. I haven't even opened an attribute table here yet, and I can already tell so much about this data. We can see the utility side, the customer side, whether or not they've been verified, and its location, and we haven't even opened up a pop-up. And that's so cool to me, being able to have all of this, being able to have all this information just from a visual aspect of the symbology. It's very cool. I love multivariable symbology, and overall this pro project is a really good way of taking a look at all that data and managing it going forward. So then we're going to hop into the field map. So the field map, of course, is a web map that's accessible in the field through ArcGIS Field Maps. And this is where we can add new points or edit existing points. And this configured smart form that you're seeing on screen is, again, completely deployable. I haven't touched a thing. This was when we deployed the solution, this is available right off the bat. So what does this give you? What are the fields that are actually being entered? Well, the first is we have information about the property. We can fill in this utilizing, we've got some radio buttons, we've got some text fields. If we had some dates, we'd see some dates in here. And all of this is fully configurable and editable inside here. If I wanted to remove this, I could do so and tailor it to what my organization wants to see when we open up this pop-up inside of ArcGIS Field Maps. Then we have, of course, that actual, the meat and potatoes of this smart form, which is, of course, capturing the information about both sides of the service line. So on the utility side, there's an asset ID if we want it, a utility material, whether or not it's ever been led in the past, install date if known, diameter, source. So we are capturing all this information because, especially if we're already at this location, even though all we maybe care about is what is this pipe made out of, this is a great chance to collect some more information about that service line going forward. Remember I mentioned that this isn't your actual service line asset? Well, this is a great time to collect that information if you don't already have it. Utility side verification, of course, there's that verification that I talked about, being able to check that box of whether or not it's been verified, and we have a verification method or verified date. You can see those have some conditional visibility on them, meaning that based on my answer to this question, I may not even see these other questions until they become relevant. The last point is the actual utility status. And this is actually a drop down or a radio button box that actually is for the non-lead, galvanized require replacement, lead, and unknown for the actual symbol itself. Now you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, I saw material all the way back there. Well, you did, because non-lead could mean copper, could mean plastic. It doesn't necessarily mean that it just means that it's not lead. So in order to keep the symbology nice and pared down and easy to view, we're capturing the material, but we're categorizing it as non-lead if it is not so. This way we can still capture the specific data, but overall this status field is what's going to drive our symbols and how we actually view the data in the map. So as I close this, there's an identical set for the customer side because of course we have to capture both sides. Now, if there is lead present, we have some information or some fields that are going to capture additional information about potential lead on this service line. And where did these fields come from? Well, that's a very good question to ask, because some of these fields, and in fact a lot of them, are actually coming directly from the law itself. There's a really handy document that's going to be sent out for resources for you guys that actually shows how Esri developed this schema based on the recommendations of the lead and copper rule itself. So these are some data sets that have been identified, or some data points that have identified as key for capturing this data. So that's why they're in here in this smart form available to you. And then of course we've got replacement info. Now, of course, as the initial inventory is developed, all the replacement statuses are going to say not replaced. But of course, when something is found as lead, it will need to be marked as needs replacement. And once that is checked, of course, then we have that available. And when we actually go back to actually do the replacement, we can then capture that information in the field as those mitigation operations are underway. So lots of cool data points that are there for tracking things once we're done with the inventory, and now we're actually coming back to actually replace these. And then, of course, there's another calculated field down here, entire line status. That's relevant for our solutions to help make them run a little bit better and get some really cool data points through the dashboard going forward. So then we have, of course, a simple viewer solution. We can see that legend on the side here. This viewer is designed for internal use. So when we click on a given point, we're seeing a very structured, very in-depth pop-up that's showing us all that information that has been filled in or what hasn't been filled in. And then we have a table view down here, because I know some of you still like that Excel spreadsheet view. And of course, we have that available down here in this table for this viewer solution. And the editor solution looks very similar. Of course, the only difference is that now we have the ability to edit the data. So the viewer could be shared with folks that maybe don't need edit access but want to view the inventory, and the editor is designed for those people that are actually working with that data. They, of course, can add service lines if they have some information. They can add those. Otherwise, if we go ahead and click on a point, we go ahead and say we want to edit that point, all of that data becomes available to edit on the side, as well as we can have attachments as well if we have pictures we want to attach, and that functionality is available in the field as well. Now, I know some of you might be asking or have noticed that both of the last two solutions we looked at were both web app builder solutions. Well, Could both of these be built in Experience Builder? You bet they could. Having utilizing Esri's latest and greatest technology within ArcGIS Online, great way to update your current solutions, and keep them moving forward and keeping them with that latest and greatest technology. Both of these could certainly be deployed in that medium as well. And then, of course, we have a dashboard, everybody's favorite, right? So we can see those key performance indicators, our lead, galvanized, and non-lead lines, whether or not those lines have been verified, of course, that's showing there. Replacement methods, if there's replacement that's going on while we're still collecting, that can get logged here. Of course, that handy dandy little table, if you didn't know, now you know. Table elements were added into dashboard, I think last year, or early last year, so they've been around for a while now. And then, of course, we have a map, which is very similar, and a little quick view of the actual lead service lines themselves. So if I go ahead and click on there, it's going to actually center in on that point and flash it so we can see where that is, and we get a nice little pared down pop-up showing information about that particular location. And then this actually works with the table as well. If I go ahead and select a record here, it's going to do the same thing, center, and flash that given point. So if I'm concerned about that point for some reason, I can find it in the table, go to the map, take a look at it, and go from there. So very cool little functionality within this fairly pared down dashboard. But of course, once you have a dashboard, you know you're just one skip and a jump away from deploying even more charts, graphs, statistics about your collection method. This is just merely your starting point, and where you can go from here, you can build off of. All right. With that, we're done with our first chunk. I'm going to go ahead and get back to our slides. And the next thing we're going to talk about is public engagement. So this can take a couple different forms, but we're going to start with the lead safe community hub site. So this hub site is, of course, there to build that narrative around lead service lines, capturing and showcasing the information that's being brought in from the field and from your staff members, showing some key statistics. But this is also where we can create that centralized location for folks to understand where they can go to get information about the capturing of the service line data. And if we need to, we can also prompt in some feedback. We'll get to that here in a second. But on this hub site is another map. It's very similar to the viewer that we just looked at, but this one is a little bit more pared down to display relevant information for the public to know about their current locations. So we'll see how that takes a different form slightly, but it looks very similar to the viewer we were looking at, but it kind of boils it down to the bare necessities of what the public might want to see about a given service line. And then we have those self-assessment solutions. So this is a Survey 123, an editor and a dashboard that is designed to help the public give us some information about their service line itself. We'll see that here shortly, but in an essence, what it does is it allows the customer, the property owner, to go down, capture information, and send it to us about whether or not they think they have a lead line or what type of line that they have going into their home. So what does that look like, or how does that work? Well, we're going to go ahead and dive into that right now as we go into our second demo. Go ahead and share my screen again. So we have our Lead Safe Community Hub site. And of course, for those of you maybe unfamiliar with hub sites is essentially a web page for GIS content. So unlike some other web pages or web vendors that you might have, sometimes GIS data isn't as easily showcased on some websites. So being able to deploy your own content-based page designed for GIS data is what a hub site is all about. And here we can see we've got a link to that material survey. We're going to be taking a look at that shortly. As we scroll down again, we're getting those key statistics. Have we found lead lines? Have we replaced any lead lines? And of course, not only can those statistics be tailored to your organization, the branding and look of this hub site can fit your organization as well. Use your colors, use your fonts, display what you want to display about your efforts, and create that location for folks to look at that information. And then we see that embedded web inventory map, right? So we see right away that we've already pared down this data by paring down the symbology. So obviously, the public doesn't necessarily need to know what side we maybe found lead on. They just care if lead was found. So here, the service line information is actually being brought down to just galvanized requiring replacement, non-lead, lead, or assumed lead. Remember that verification stage? Well, if we assume there might be lead there, but we haven't verified it yet, that's where this symbol can come in handy, just to show that we think there's lead there, we assume there is, but that may change until it actually either is bumped up to lead or is maybe brought down to galvanized or non-lead locations. So very straightforward public application. If you go ahead and click on there, we have a very streamlined pop-up that shows utility side, customer side, done, dusted, ready to go, right? I really like this one, even though it's pretty straightforward. Having this information out there is really going to help questions, cut down on the amount of calls about this. If somebody's actually curious, they can actually go search their address and see if they've already been collected as far as their inventory. And then the rest of the hub site that's currently deployed out of the box is all about that narrative, right? We want to verify the materials, inform our customers, reduce lead, educate the public. What is with lead and in the water? How is that bad? Why is that bad? Having some resources available to, or a section of your hub site to be able to show that is also very nice for the public to be able to see. And then I just love this graphic here that's out of the box, showing actually what a service line is. You might have seen I actually had it in the slides earlier, that showing actually how the service line is connected to the water meter, the private side versus the public side, and why we have to capture both sets of information when it regards to the lead service line inventory. As we go forward, then we're going to see this water service material survey. So the rest of the solutions we're going to look at here in this chunk are all about the self-assessment portion. So if we would like to have the customers actually give us some information about this, about their service line, it starts with this survey 123 form. You can see I've already pre-filled in some information so that we can actually submit one while we're on the call here today, or on this webinar here today. Name, phone number, email, of course, those are all required fields. Property address. So this is how we're actually going to plot the initial point that's generated here, is by the official address. If I have an account number, I can fill that in. Am I an owner, renter? And then we also have this really handy link for helping folks identify what their service line material might be. This link actually goes out to this collaborative web page, kind of showing what does a lead, galvanized, copper, or plastic line actually look like. I think this is a great resource. I liked reading through this when I was developing the slides for here. So this is a very neat little link to have right in the survey if this gets deployed for your organization. Water service line material. So what material do we think we have? We think we have a lead line here in this example. When did we collect it? We say today. My source was a visual inspection, and then of course we're going to require a photo. Have them take a photo of the service line itself. I was going to take one of my own, but I live in an apartment, so that's a little bit more difficult for me to do. So I just got a little graphic here, and that I've thrown into this survey 123. Now it's important to note when I hit submit here, I am not editing the service line data that we've looked at going forward. This creates a separate point in a self-assessment feature class that can then be triaged with the solutions that we're going to look at coming up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the submit record on this. Thank you. The response was submitted. So then we're going to hop into the self-assessment manager. I'm going to go ahead and refresh that. And this self-assessment manager is, of course, that first line of defense for triaging that data coming in. So we can see that here was that point that came in. It plotted it at that address within the city of St. Cloud. If I go ahead and click on it, I can see the information that was filled in, that we filled in via that survey 123. We're getting a little bit, it's a very nice pop-up to show this. We're seeing the source of information, the status. So right now it's been submitted, and this is where we would go ahead and edit that. So let's go ahead and mark that as we've seen it. So let's say in progress. So I hit save. That changes the graph, that changes the point. And of course, I can actually view that photo that we sent, right? That little feedback graphic that I sent in there. We can see those photos right within this self-assessment manager. So what happens after this? Well, say we verify that we believe this is correct. They did it all right. That it is lead there. We want to now bring that into the inventory. Well, this is where we would open up that editor that we saw in our first demo, find this address and plot a point there and fill in the data as it pertains to what was entered through here. So we insulate the self-assessment from the actual data, but now we can bring those points in to the editor so that we can then bring that data into the actual inventory. But we also want to be able to track this, right? So say we actually deploy this and say we get a good response and we've got 50 pending self-assessments in here. Well, we want to be able to track what's coming in versus what's going out, how we're managing that data. And we do that through, you guessed it, another dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and hit refresh on this. And here is where we're able to actually take a look at each of those submissions. So we see that here's a current submission that we have. I click on it and I actually see the details in this details panel down here. You can see that it's marked as in progress now. You can see that legend over here that shows the submitted, in progress, received versus completed. And if I had any completed submissions, they would be over here on this side in a list, much like the one that we have over here. And of course, we get these key statistics at the top of the bar. I think that's very slick. I always like those categorized status key statistics on my dashboards. And then, of course, we can actually take a look at the information through filtering. We can filter by source, status, material. You see that those lists will actually populate as data is entered. So if we had 20 submissions in here and we run the gamut of the different domains of lead, non-lead, galvanized, all those would be able to be viewed in the material, the status, the source, and of course in the submission date, so that we can filter and take a look at how this data is coming in and how our efforts are in getting it out and placing new information in the inventory, because that's the staff's job. The public is just helping us out by giving this information a place to go, right? So that concludes the self-assessment piece. Again, just to go back over, we have a hub site that creates that single destination for all of the information coming through about lead service line for the public. And then we have a survey 123, a manager, and a dashboard that is there to help triage that data and get it into the actual inventory via the editor solutions that we looked at when we started. All right, so we're going to go ahead and switch back to our slide deck. All right, and now we're going to talk about the asset management piece, right? So these solutions inherently give us a way of going through the workflow of capturing this data. We go from inventory to management to replacement. And that's how everything flows through these solutions. Is it can come in from the field map, it can come in from the editor, it can come in from that survey 123 we just looked at. It goes down into the management piece. And then, of course, ultimately, we want to replace those that we find. It's important to note here that one one of the statuses we've been looking at through this entire webinar is galvanized needs replacement. Galvanized pipe, of course, not as a priority as lead, but we also want to replace those lines as well. That's one of the kind of that secondary goal of updating our inventory. So we want to be able to track that data, not just the lead data in and of itself. But we also have the ability to create our own workflow. I always say that the solutions can dictate your workflow, or your workflow can dictate the solution, right? So we can follow and use everything out of the box that we've been showing here today, but we could also leverage the platform, build out different field maps, different survey 123s, utilize ArcGIS Workforce for work assignment, or build upon the dashboards that I've been demoing to you guys here, just to actually take a look at how to leverage this entire platform and build out this maintenance plan for the for lead service lines and just your general service lines going forward. We also want to manage this data that we're capturing. Of course, we saw in the field map that we're not just capturing information related to whether or not it's lead, we're also capturing diameter, and say we've never had that before. So we want to be able to manage that data, get it into either a real service line inventory, or continue to utilize these points as locations of where the service lines are and what's actually there. So this is building that representation, the digital twin, if you will, of the service lines via the lead service line inventory is a great way to kickstart those efforts if you already haven't started collecting that information. And then, of course, it comes down to replacement. Of course, we want to be able to actually able to replace these and track when those get replaced. So there is a management solution deployed with the out-of-the-box lead service line inventory. That's an editor specifically configured for the replacement fields. So as we saw in the field map, there's a specific group that the field crew would be able to go out and mark down the status of whether or not it has been replaced, which can then be managed with this editor in the field. So we're going to go in and take a look at that now. Bring that up. And we're going to go ahead and shift the screen one more time. All right, so what we're looking at here is the lead service line replacement manager. Now this does a couple of good things here, and the first is that it does that filtering. Of course, we want to know what needs replacement. So without any other fuss, I hit this toggle button, boom, everything falls away except for that one lead line that we've identified in the sample data, of course. And then once we have our full inventory built out, all the lead lines would then be showed so we can deal with those particularly. And now we can see that we're no longer, in this case, we no longer are symbolizing by that complex one we looked at in our Pro project, but now we're symbolized based off of the replacement status field. So doesn't need replacement. Of course, that is any item that has come in that's non-lead, or in this case, galvanized, in this case is marked as that as well, but you could obviously change that configuration. Then, of course, needs replacement is anything that's marked as lead, would be that big red dot, right, that we want to get off the map. We don't like big red dots here. And then we would have scheduled replacement. So say we decide that we're going to do this block, right, and I can mark this point as scheduled, and that way it would then change symbol to show that, oh, there's lead there, but we're actually scheduled for replacement. And once that actually happens, we fill in that data in the field, and that actually gets triggered through the field map. And then it would then change to that green symbol showing that it actually had been replaced. So we're getting rid of red and bringing in the green, right? Red and green, that's my favorite combination. And then, of course, we have another table view of this as well, showcasing all of the data that's relevant for the replacement. So those verifications are on here, the actual replacement status, the galvanized, non-lead, these fields that are there specifically for the replacement rather than for the inventory gathering that we were doing on the initial run. And then, of course, we have the last piece of this, which I didn't showcase, but this is actually a feature that is already in the editor, is there is a tool called Batch Attribute Editor. This is available if you're utilizing Web App Builder, you can use this tool, and effectively this just means that we can select multiple service lines and update data on a batch level. I really like this tool for that method, especially when we have the same fields we're trying to update for maybe several of these points. This is a great way to get that done in a very efficient, direct manner. A couple other points I will make is that you can of course collapse this. We can search our addresses in here. So if we have a particular location that we're looking at, we can add that. And everything that we're seeing here, when it comes to this map or any of the other maps that we're seeing, so far, everything that we have shown has just been the lead service line data. Well, we have maybe pipeline data. We have other reference data that we might want to actually have available to us when we're conducting these edits. Those can certainly be added into all of these web maps, all the dashboards, so that you're utilizing some reference data, some other types of information that are at your fingertips for editing this data. So one of the things I will mention, of course, this is the out of the box solution, so where it's focused in on the actual actionable uh, feature class, but reference data can certainly be added going forward. So for the last time, I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the slide deck. We're already 47 minutes in here, folks. All right. Next slide. We've reached our recap, right? So we've gone through a lot of information. Again, I apologize that I couldn't spend more time on every single solution, but we want to make sure we're respectful of your time. And there's so much information here to go through. We wanted to get the broad strokes out to you guys. So to recap, what uh what we have here is a comprehensive workflow for creating an inventory, engaging the public, and developing a replacement plan. This is not just about one and done. I want to go out, collect the points, send off my compliance, and then forget about it. That's not what the solution is about. And for that matter of fact, that's not about what the lead and copper rule is about as well. And having this initial workflow can be great for organizations just starting out, or if you already have in mind, like I know what I need to do, I have a workflow in place for capturing this data. We can actually go through and tailor these solutions to that to that workflow and utilize that flexible ArcGIS platform. These are out of the box. These are flexible deployments that match each organization's developmental step. I've said that before. I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, that out of the box solutions are there as a starting point and allow you to leverage them for what you need. And for that matter, the entire ArcGIS system is available to you, utilizing available tools and reapplying of your training. So you're going to go out and deploy this. I know you will. You're going to go out and deploy this lead service line inventory. You're going to start capturing data. You're going to learn a lot about Survey 123, field maps, dashboards, maybe Experience Builder. You're going to learn all this stuff, and then it can be applied to other data sets, other efforts at your organization. This is your foot in the door for this can be the foot in the door for learning the platform, or if you're already leveraging the platform for certain things, this is just another great addition to have available for the lead service line inventory and meeting the compliance of the lead and copper rule. So with that, we have reached the end here. A couple other points I wanted to mention for anybody that has questions. Questions about this, you want a more in-depth demo, want to learn more about, or want help deploying this solution, go ahead and contact Marcus Glass, our business development director. His information and LinkedIn page are on the screen now, as well as my my information if you're already familiar with me. And we've had conversations before. Obviously, there's my contact information, but I think most of you are going to be herded to Marcus as far as questions going forward. And we can have these great conversations about lead service line at your organization. And I'll make this last point here today is that again, this is only the beginning. If you have other utility points, I know lead service line is going to be first, but if you have other needs at your organization, there's all these other types of utility-based solutions available within the ArcGIS Solutions gallery. Your water, sewer, and stormwater data management solutions, Adapta Catch Basin, capital improvement project tracking that utilities often plays a role in, and then our inspection processes for manholes, hydrants, catch basins, and a brand new, as of last week, stormwater construction activity management solution, as well as if we want to go one step further, there's the ArcGIS utility network for network tracing and really diving deep into that solution. So lots of different options when it comes to the platform. But again, I know you're going to start with the lead service line solution anyway, so why not start there, right? All right. Well, I came in under time, shockingly enough. So if you have questions, I'm going to go ahead and take a look. Doesn't look like we have any questions in right now. Oh, a couple questions might be popping in. And for those of you that might not have entered your question yet, feel free to go on and do that. I'm taking a look at the chat window and the questions now. All right, we've got a couple. So Jay asked the updating of the service line feature service based on the survey records submitted is a manual process. Okay, so I'm thinking this is regarding the self-assessment portion. And yes, it is a manual process if the records are coming in, the self-assessment records are coming in from the customer. Obviously, there could be some manual processes or some automated processes set up if you wanted to do so. The out-of-the-box solution is effectively designed that the customer is going to bring some data in, but they might not have gotten it right. Or you see from the picture that, oh, they marked it as galvanized, but that really looks like copper or something like that. So there's a mitigation there, a divide that is done through manual processing. Now, that doesn't mean that something couldn't be built to better streamline that workflow from self-assessment into the service line feature class, but that is certainly an option. And you're welcome. You're welcome, Jay. And then Elizabeth asked, you mentioned this pro project can be downloaded from Esri for use with ArcGIS Online. Is this also compatible with ArcGIS Enterprise? Oh, what a great question. Thank you, Elizabeth, for mentioning this. And yes, so with ArcGIS Enterprise, this and ArcGIS Portal. So if you have deployed a portal with your enterprise agreement, the solutions app is available within your portal, and you can download the solutions from that. Lead service line is one of those. But based off of what I will say there can be some differences between the ArcGIS Online versus the Enterprise, of course. Enterprise will deploy with the version of that solution at the time of deployment or that version. So there could be a couple of differences. The lead service line solution has been around for a little bit. So I imagine anybody on the more recent updates on 10.9, 10.8 even, probably have access to the lead service line solution available for download, just like in ArcGIS Online. So for sure, if you have ArcGIS Enterprise, it can be done there as well. Also like to mention when it bring up ArcGIS Enterprise, it's also a case where you don't necessarily have to have the solutions in there. If you would prefer them in there, great. I love when people deploy stuff inside their portal. But if you just want your data to reside in your SDE, you could then publish your data and utilize the latest and greatest technology inside of ArcGIS Online. So that is a method as well. So there's a way of tweening that. So awesome. So I think that Does this require hub premium from Lauren? Does this require hub premium? So nothing I've shown you right now requires hub premium. Hub premium, for those of you that don't know, is an upgrade on regular hub. What that does is it gives you a set of community identities and the ability to create calendar events and manage those community identities so folks can log in and see information that's maybe not available for the general public versus um, uh, available, excuse me, um, being able to log in and see things that the public can't be able to or shouldn't be able to. There's lots of different methods for why you would use that, but the out of the box configuration and the design of the hub site inside this solution does not require hub premium. If you have hub premium, you can certainly leverage it if you would wish, but it's not a requirement for sure. So thank you, Lauren, for that question. That is a good question. I'm going to go ahead, mark those as answered. I see Jay has put a comment in the questions panel that the solution is available on Enterprise 10.9.1, but he did find that the online version is more comprehensive. So again, that version difference can cause some things if certain things were updated versus you know, before or after that Enterprise version was launched. All right, and I see David says, I do not see our solution icon in our internal portal. Would this be a licensing issue? So yeah, and that's a question, more in-depth question. I wouldn't be able to answer that without taking a look at it. So if you want to go ahead and contact Marcus, or if you already, David, I apologize that your name's not coming to me, so I don't know where you're from. But if you already have a PM available, you can contact them as well. And we can talk about why you might not be seeing that in there. And a lot of it depends on how the portal is deployed. So some things, depending on your version, might need to be added in at a later time. But certainly we can see about getting that deployed in that specific portal. So for sure, I'm gonna go ahead and mark me as all these. All right. Any other questions? We still have quite a few people online. If you've got your questions, we've got a couple more minutes left. All right, I am not seeing any more questions popping in, but of course, if you have more questions, we're going to end this here today. You have more questions, you want to talk about this further with us at ProWest, again, that information is still on the screen. Marcus and myself can help you guys out, and we'll be able to help you out with any of your needs regarding the lead service line solution and your needs at your organization. Thank you all for staying with me here today. I'm glad we were able to get to a lot of these, and keep mapping. Bye now.